Step into your greatness, let it shine oh so bright. I am worthy VIP, gonna take you to new heights. Turn the volume up, let's ignite your soul's delight. Join the journey now, everything gonna be alright. Hey, hey, you know you're worthy all day.
Okay, let's dive right in. Here's a kind of surprising stat for you. Over half of marriages in the U.S. end in divorce. And that's even though, 56% of adults are actually married.
Wow. Yeah, that's a huge number. A lot of relationships hitting, well, major roadblocks.
Exactly. So the big questions we're trying to tackle today are why? Why do so many marriages fail? And what makes marriage dynamics so different from, say, our other connections?
It's a stark contrast, isn't it? I mean, we put so much cultural weight on marriage, yet the outcomes suggest we're often, well, flying blind a bit, not really clear on what keeps a partnership genuinely strong.
Right. And to try and shed some light on this, we've pulled a lot of insights from the book oceanoffpdf.com, reallove-gregbear.pdf. Our mission here in this deep dive is really to extract the core wisdom from this book, to give you a kind of shortcut to understanding why some marriages work and, well, why others just don't.
Looking for those key aha.
Yeah, exactly. Those moments that clarify these really intimate, complex bonds.
And it's important to say, I think, that understanding this stuff isn't just for married people. The principles here, the intense push and pull, the expectations, the emotions, they teach us a lot about all our relationships, friendships, family, everything.
Precisely. So whether you're married, maybe thinking about it, or you're just, fascinated by how people connect, this deep dive is definitely for you. We're really aiming to make these sometimes complex ideas feel clear and relevant, without all the academic jargon, ready to explore.
Absolutely. Let's start with something that, well, it might seem a bit counterintuitive at first, this idea of the illusion of blame.
Yeah.
The book basically argues that blaming our spouses for how we feel or act, even though it feels so natural, is actually never justified. What's the thinking there?
Okay, so picture this analogy the book uses. A 50-year-old guy, right? And he's got a bunch of unhealthy habits. Overweight, bad diet, smokes, high blood pressure. Ignores his doctor, plus a family history of heart attacks. Now, if this guy has a heart attack, do we blame his wife? Did she make him live that way?
Yeah, that really hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? I mean, sure, external factors might play some small role, but the main drivers of his health are internal. His choices, his body. Blaming someone else there just completely misses the root cause.
And that's the parallel the book draws with relationships. Our emotional well-being in a marriage works kind of the same way. Just like physical health is largely self-determined, our feelings, our reactions to our spouse, they're mostly rooted in our own internal stuff. Our past, our insecurities, what we feel we're lacking.
Yeah.
It's not just about what our partner did 5 minutes ago. So when we immediately point the finger, we're often just ignoring those deeper things inside ourselves.
Exactly. And understanding that leads right into another really key concept. This deep, deep human yearning for unconditional acceptance. The book calls this real love. How does the author actually describe that feeling?
It paints this picture of feeling completely accepted, like truly, for who you are, flaws and everything. Imagine being in a room full of people where you don't have to impress anyone. You don't need to hide your mistakes or, put on a brave face. You could share anything, good stuff, bad stuff, vulnerabilities, and just know you'd be met with understanding and care. No judgment, no irritation, just safety.
It's a powerful image. And what's striking is how much that contrasts with so many interactions in marriage where, gosh, offense is taken so easily. Have you ever had that? Where you say something totally innocent, you think.
Oh, absolutely. All the time.
It just explodes.
Yeah. It's like you've stepped on an emotional landmine you didn't even see. And then, of course, you might get defensive. They get more upset. Boom. Full-blown argument.
Right.
The book really wants us to look at that cycle. Why do we keep getting stuck in these patterns that just leave us feeling, well, further apart?
And the author suggests a key reason is the absence of that real love, that feeling of total acceptance. So in its place, couples often start trading in what he calls imitation love. Things we do to try and feel good or get needs met when that solid foundation is missing.
Right, and there are 4 main kinds he talks about. Praise, power, which is really about control.
Yeah.
Pleasure, like comfort food or sex.
Right.
And security, that feeling of stability.
And the book uses this couple, Mark and Susan, early in their marriage to show how this imitation love plays out. What did that look like?
Oh, well, initially it seemed great for them. They complimented each other a lot. both felt they had some say. They enjoyed the physical side, Mark especially. And Susan felt secure because they were getting more of these, let's call them goods, from each other than before. They felt happy, in love even.
Yeah.
It felt like a fair trade.
The argument is that this kind of give and take based on imitation love, it's just not built to last, is it? What happens over time?
Yeah, that's where it starts to crumble. The book points out the effects are temporary. They fade. So Mark and Susan might offer less praise, maybe the power balance shifts, the initial thrill wears off. And when that happens, they start feeling like the unspoken rules of the deal have been broken. Like, hey, I'm not getting what I signed up for. This leads to dissatisfaction, resentment. The happiness built on that shaky ground just starts to fall apart.
So the takeaway is that these substitutes, while maybe feeling good for a bit, ultimately leave us feeling empty because they're conditional. They don't hit that core need for unconditional acceptance.
Exactly.
Let's maybe break down those 4 imitation loves a bit more. Praise, for instance. What makes it conditional?
Well, the key is that praise is almost always earned.
Yeah.
We get complimented when we do something right or look good or act agreeably when we meet some external standard. It's acceptance if I like you because you're talented or funny or successful.
Right. The implication being, if you stop being those things.
Then maybe the affection starts too. It creates this pressure to perform, to hide anything we think isn't good enough.
Okay. And power. How's that defined here?
Power's imitation love isn't like healthy collaboration. It's about control. Any attempt, conscious or not, to make your spouse do something. And the book makes a sharp point.
Yeah.
We often deny we're trying to control them. But if you feel disappointed or annoyed or even angry when they don't do what you wanted, that's a pretty big clue you were trying to exert control.
Okay. That makes sense. Then there's pleasure. How does that fit in when real love is missing?
Well, pleasure, food, sex, shopping, entertainment, whatever, it can become a way to numb the pain or fill the emptiness when we don't feel truly loved. Nothing wrong with enjoying things, obviously.
Of course not.
But the book suggests that when we compulsively seek these things out, it's often a sign, an unconscious attempt to soothe that deeper ache for acceptance. It's a temporary Band-Aid.
Right, a quick fix that doesn't solve the underlying problem. Okay, so this lack of real love, this reliance on imitation love, it often leads to what the book calls getting and protecting behaviors. What are those?
Exactly. Getting behaviors are the tactics we use to try and get that imitation love, or maybe just to avoid feeling pain and empty. Think. Lying. Attacking with criticism or anger. Playing the victim. Being super clingy.
Okay.
And then protecting behaviors are defenses when we feel attacked or unloved. Getting angry back. Shutting down. Withdrawing emotionally.
Right, building walls.
Yeah. And the book uses Mark and Susan again with this story about ketchup on the wall to show these behaviors in action. Can you walk us through that one?
Sure. So Mark sees ketchup on the wall.
Yeah.
Instead of just, mentioning it or asking Susan to clean it, he reacts with anger. The book suggests this isn't really a conscious choice, but an unconscious way to use fear to maybe get her to clean it quickly, maybe get some attention. Earlier on, Susan might have just done it, maybe out of fear. But as the imitation love faded, she started protecting herself. How? By getting angry back, lashing out.
The counterattack.
Exactly. So now you have this cycle.
Flank attack.
Protect by attacking back, and they both end up feeling more hurt, more disconnected.
So the key point is these behaviors might seem to work in the very short term, get a reaction, feel a bit of control, but long term, they're damaging to the relationship and to ourselves.
Definitely. So if they're so consistently harmful, why on earth do we keep doing them?
The book argues it's simple because they work, or at least they seem to, quickly. In the absence of that deep, unconditional, real love, these behaviors offer a fast, predictable way to get some temporary relief from pain or emptiness.
Right, like yelling might get a faster response than asking nicely sometimes.
Exactly. Someone might ignore hints for weeks, but an angry outburst gets their attention now. We get stuck because it offers that immediate, though ultimately unsatisfying, result. Plus, we often learn these patterns as kids, right? Maybe watching our parents use anger to motivate.
True. Or just, we don't know any better way, like playing tennis badly. Yeah. Because nobody ever taught you the right technique.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. We're just doing what we know, even if it's not effective.
And a huge step in breaking these cycles is understanding what's really driving the behavior. We get confused by our spouse's reactions, which just fuels more bad reactions from us. This brings us to a really powerful analogy the book uses, the drowning person. Can you explain that?
Oh, this one really resonated with me. Okay, imagine you see someone flailing in the water, splashing frantically. And in their panic, they accidentally splash water on you. Your first instinct might be irritation, maybe even anger. Hey, watch it.
Hmm.
But then you realize, wait, they're not just splashing, they're drowning. Suddenly, your anger just evaporates, right? It's replaced by this immediate urge to help. You don't have to force yourself to be calm. Understanding their desperate situation changes everything instantly.
And the book applies this directly to our spouse's negative behaviors. When they lie or attack or withdraw or play the victim, these are often signs they're feeling a critical lack of real love. They are, in effect, emotionally drowning.
Exactly. And once you grasp that their behavior stems from this deep need or fear, your own anger and irritation can just lessen.
Dramatically.
It can be replaced by a desire to offer support, to offer love instead of judgment.
That understanding of the underlying need helps explain why we often mistakenly think our partners make us angry.
Right. The book shares this really moving story where Mark, instead of reacting angrily to Susan's anger, remembers this drowning analogy and he just gives her a hug. And she immediately breaks down crying. It totally shifted the whole interaction.
Yeah.
And later, Susan had this realization. I've been drowning all my life, she said, without even knowing it.
That's profound.
It also explains why small things can trigger huge reactions, right? If you're already feeling unloved, insecure, emotionally treading water, even a tiny wave, a minor inconvenience, can feel like it's going to pull you under.
Which directly challenges that common phrase, "you made me angry." The book uses this clever example about losing money. If you lost, say, $1,000, you might be pretty upset, angry even.
Sure.
But imagine you suddenly inherited $20 million,
Yeah.
and then you lost that same 1,000. Would you even notice? Probably not.
Good point. It wouldn't feel like a significant loss anymore.
Exactly. Your anger wasn't caused by the act of losing the money itself, but by the significance of the loss relative to your overall sense of security, your emotional wealth, your feeling of having enough real love.
So when we have a strong foundation of feeling loved, those little inconsiderate things our partners do become just annoyances, not major triggers for rage.
Right. And our perception matters hugely too.
Right.
How we see the person, our history with them. A critical comment from a trusted friend feels different than the exact same comment from someone we think dislikes us.
Absolutely. Context is everything.
And it all comes back to that fundamental need, that yearning for unconditional love. There's this story about Anne and her broken car. At first, she was furious with her husband for not fixing it.
Okay.
But when she dug deeper, the real issue wasn't just the car. It was the feeling of being uncared for, like her needs didn't matter to him.
Ah, the underlying message she took from it.
Precisely. If she'd felt truly, deeply loved and secure in his care, the car would have just been an inconvenience. Annoying, maybe, but it's not devastating.
And this lack of feeling love, this emotional starvation, often fuels what the book calls the law of expectations. What's that about?
The law of expectations basically states that we never have the right to expect anyone to do anything for us, especially to love us. The book uses this image of a starving person in the desert. They see someone coming with food. Of course, they expect help, right? It feels natural, necessary. Similarly, when we're emotionally starving for real love, we develop these massive expectations of others, especially our spouse, to fill that void.
And the problem with those huge expectations.
Well, two things, really. First, they make it almost impossible to appreciate what we do get. It never feels like enough because the need is so deep.
Right, you're always focused on the gap.
Exactly. And second, these expectations put immense pressure on the other person. They feel resented or controlled, which often makes them pull away even more. It's a totally self-defeating cycle.
Oh, okay, wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot to think about. The book then shares this parable, right? The working and the wise man. How does that illustrate things?
Yeah, it's a great little story. So the king wears a bag over his head because he's deeply ashamed of his warts, and terrified people will reject him if they see them.
Okay, hiding his flaws.
Right. Then comes the wise man. He doesn't hide his own warts, and he just accepts the king's warts without judgment.
So the bag is like us hiding our imperfections, afraid of disapproval.
Exactly. It prevents real connection. The wise man represents someone who feels loved and secure enough in themselves that they can see and accept you, warts and all, when you dare to be truthful.
And these wise people aren't mythical figures.
No, not at all. The book says they can be found in everyday life, friends, family, mentors, people in supportive groups, people who offer that unconditional acceptance.
And the key message is,
That feeling truly loved starts with us being truthful about ourselves, taking off the metaphorical bag, even though it feels incredibly risky.
which most of us don't do, right? The book suggests we tell little lies daily to avoid disapproval. Like, Kirk in the book, who wouldn't admit he was slacking on chores.
Yeah, exactly. Kirk was wearing his own bag because he was afraid Jill would criticize him if he owned up to being irresponsible. Like the Wart King, fearing judgment.
But the argument is, you can't feel genuinely loved until you're willing to be seen, honestly, flaws included.
Right, which immediately brings up a big fear, doesn't it? Okay, fine, but my partner won't be accepting if I'm honest. They'll just attack me. How does the book handle that?
It totally acknowledges that fear. It's real, but it also says, look, you actually don't know how they'll react until you try. Kirk had no idea how Jill would respond, and it offers practical ways to share your feelings without blaming. Like owning your own feelings, admitting when you're being selfish, apologizing for your reactions.
So it's not about demanding they accept you.
No, not at all. It's about being honest yourself, which creates an opportunity for them to learn and maybe change how they respond, but you can't expect or demand that change.
Which leads to another crucial point. Your happiness can't depend only on your spouse's love. How does the book explain that?
It really emphasizes cultivating real love from multiple sources: friends, support groups, family, wherever you can find that unconditional acceptance. When your own emotional well is full, or at least fuller, from various places.
You're stronger.
Exactly. You have more inner resilience. You're less vulnerable when your partner does something negative. It's like having that $20 million we talked about earlier. Small losses don't wipe you out emotionally.
And gratitude is key here too, right? Being thankful for the love you do receive.
Hugely important. Actively appreciating the real love you get makes a massive difference to your own well-being.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the problems, the lack of real love, the consequences. How does the book describe the process of actually sharing and receiving real love in a relationship? What does that look like?
Well, it outlines this kind of progression. When you're lacking real love, you feel empty, afraid, and you tend to see your spouse mainly in terms of what they can do for you or to you.
Right, through a lens of need or fear.
Yeah. And in that state, you just can't offer unconditional acceptance. But as you start being more truthful about yourself, and crucially, as you start feeling loved unconditionally, maybe from a friend, a group, anyone, that emptiness and fear begin to lessen. And without that constant need to get something or protect yourself, you start to see your spouse more clearly. Not as an enemy, but as, well, another person with their own needs, their own vulnerabilities.
And that leads to acceptance.
Naturally, yeah.
Yeah.
And from that acceptance, a genuine concern for their happiness starts to grow. And that, the book says, is the heart of real love.
And it's not just about saying, I love you, is it? It's about actions.
Definitely. Acceptance is shown by not reacting with fear or anger to their flaws or mistakes, but loving is more active. It's a commitment to their happiness, often shown through concrete actions.
Developing a wider vocabulary of love, as the book puts it.
Exactly. And one really fundamental way to communicate this real love is through listening. And not just any listening, right?
Right. The core idea is that underneath whatever you're talking about, your spouse's deepest need in that moment is probably to feel unconditionally accepted and loved. If your listening doesn't convey that acceptance, they're likely to feel more empty, more afraid, which just triggers those unproductive behaviors again.
So the main goal of listening isn't just information exchange.
No, it's communicating real love.
Hmm.
And the book goes beyond just like active listening techniques. It talks about getting to a deeper level of understanding, which it calls 8. What's that?
Okay, so just repeating back what they said, like, okay, I hear you saying 2, 4, 6. That shows you heard the words. That's maybe a 6.
Right.
But 8 is when you show you understand the unspoken stuff, the feeling behind the words, the real issue. Like the example with Lynn being upset about Andrew leaving milk out. Andrew didn't just say, okay, milk. He recognized her deeper feeling. You feel like I don't care about your needs generally.
Getting to the heart of it. That's 8. Showing you truly get the bigger picture.
Okay. Beyond listening, what other specific actions does the book highlight for actively showing real love?
Well, offering sincere apologies is a big one, without making excuses or downplaying what you did. And interestingly, it reminds us not to forget the power of just saying, I love you, even if it feels awkward because maybe it was used conditionally in the past. Then there are lots of concrete examples, really celebrating their presence when they walk in, making their favorite meal just because, suggesting a walk together, genuinely supporting their hobbies, planning regular dedicated time just for the two of you.
Those everyday acts of thoughtfulness.
Exactly. And the book also brings up the importance of proactively seeking to understand. Like with Blaine and Amanda at the family gathering.
Right. Blaine got defensive at first when Amanda felt overlooked.
Yeah, but then instead of arguing, he chose to listen, understand her feeling, and apologize. That act of seeking to understand her experience was crucial.
And for practical connection, the book gets really specific, doesn't it? About dates and meetings.
Oh, yeah. It strongly recommends a weekly date night, minimum 2 to 3 hours, totally uninterrupted, just for connecting, having fun.
That takes commitment.
It does. And it also suggests a brief weekly planning meeting, like 15-20 minutes to sync schedules, talk about chores, logistics, stuff that often causes arguments if it's not discussed calmly. Handling the business of life separately so it doesn't hijack connection time.
Precisely. And the key is treating both those times, the date and the meeting, as important protected commitments.
And to help build empathy, the book also encourages self-reflection on our own not-so-great behaviors, right?
Yes, it gives examples related to chores, parenting, communication, and asks you to honestly look at yourself. Where are you being irresponsible or unloving? Not to beat yourself up, but just for truthful self-awareness. That's the starting point for change.
Okay. The book then tackles conflict, and it defines it quite specifically, doesn't it? It's not just disagreeing.
Right. Conflict, in this context, means interactions involving those getting and protecting behaviors, usually driven by anger. It really challenges the idea that conflict is normal or healthy in a marriage. It argues it's always damaging.
And the solution isn't just managing conflict better.
The long-term solution isn't. It's addressing the root cause, that lack of real love that fuels the anger and fear behind the conflict behaviors.
But for dealing with conflicts when they do happen, the book offers a whole set of practical guidelines. What are some key ones?
Okay, several stand out. First, don't get discouraged by mistakes. Learning this stuff takes time. You'll slip up. Just admit it and keep trying.
Good reminder.
Second, listen. Really listen. One person speaks at a time. Sounds basic, but it's crucial. Third, be quiet when you're angry. Anger poisons communication, even non-verbally. You need to deal with the anger first.
That's hard but important.
Fourth, and this is a tough one, be willing to be wrong. Our desperate need to be right often comes from our own fear and insecurity. Focus on admitting your stuff, your fear, your bad behaviors, your unrealistic expectations.
Oh, and your part.
Exactly. Fifth, get loved. If you're empty and feeling attacked by your spouse, you might not have the resources to respond lovingly. Go get some real love from a supportive friend or group first.
Fill your own tank before trying to give. Makes sense. What about telling the truth about your partner? Does that mean confronting them?
Not necessarily, no. Often it means telling the truth to yourself. Seeing their angry outburst or their withdrawal not as a personal attack, but as a sign that they are drowning, that they lack real love.
Ah, shifting your own perspective again.
Yes. It can instantly reduce your own anger and bring up compassion.
What else?
Focus on what you really want long-term for the relationship. Like Paula, who realized a loving connection with Aaron was more important than a perfectly tidy house, even though the mess bugged her. Trying to control him for tidiness was making them both miserable.
Prioritizing the relationship over the issue.
Right. Remembering they have the right to choose their own actions, trying to find win-win solutions, making sincere amends for your part, knowing when to withdraw from a fight that's going nowhere.
Lots of practical tools there.
Yeah, and avoiding starting fights over small stuff, communicating trust, asking questions instead of accusing.
It sounds like a whole new way of communicating.
It kind of is. The book even suggests creating a mission statement for your marriage, like a guiding principle maybe. Our commitment to loving each other comes first to help you prioritize when things get difficult.
Like a North Star for the relationship.
Yeah. And it emphasizes commitment generally. Viewing marriage like, say, inventing the light bulb requires dedication through setbacks. What about when only one person is trying?
Ah, the one-sided loving question. What's the advice there?
Focus on your loving actions consistently without demanding they change immediately, like Catherine in the book with Ray. Your actions create the possibility for change, but you can't force it.
Then gratitude comes in again here.
Hugely. Being ungrateful kills your own joy and kills their motivation. Acknowledge and appreciate any positive steps, no matter how small they seem compared to past hurts.
And finally, it reframes differences. The beauty of one.
Yes. Instead of seeing differences as problems, see them as potential strengths. Two whole, loving people together create something much richer than either could alone. A true sense of oneness.
Okay, so moving into the making it work part. Requests and agreements. People worry unconditional love means being a doormat. How does the book handle that?
It clarifies. Unconditional love doesn't mean passively accepting bad treatment or having no needs. You absolutely have the right to make requests, but how you make them is key.
Loving requests, not demands. What are the principles for that?
Well, don't make them when you're angry, insistent, irritated, or secretly resentful they didn't already guess what you needed.
Check your own emotional state first.
Yes. Maybe get some real love elsewhere before making a vulnerable request. And when you get a request, think, will my response help them feel loved?
And if they say no?
That's their right. Accepting that gracefully without making it a huge drama actually frees you up to find other ways to meet your need.
What else about requests?
Be specific. Don't make them guess. Write down big ones to avoid confusion. Make lots of requests. Ask for what you want. Be flexible. Try to find win-wins, but don't manipulate. And talk openly about preferences, even sensitive ones like sex.
And agreements, how are they different?
Agreements are more proactive. Mutual understandings reached beforehand about how things will work, maybe dividing chores, planning finances. The key is supporting each other in keeping them.
Okay. What about that tough situation where you are trying to be more loving, but your spouse is still unhappy? Like Sharon and Boyd.
Yeah, the book uses their story to show that your love creates the possibility for change, but you can't make them happy or force them to deal with their own stuff, like Boyd's anger.
So you can't force them to be truthful with themselves.
No, your job is your own loving behavior. That's the only real influence you have.
Are there times when telling your partner the truth is actually not helpful?
Yes, definitely. The book says, don't do it when they're already angry or overwhelmed. They just can't hear you then.
Right. Timing matters.
And don't point out obvious flaws they already know about, especially if your motive is just to vent your own frustration. That's usually not helpful.
So what do you do instead?
Tell the truth about yourself, even if they're angry, sharing your feelings. Your contribution to the dynamic, like Abby did with her angry husband, can sometimes be more effective than pointing fingers.
It keeps the focus on what you can control yourself.
Exactly. And the book circles back to examples like Andrew and Lynn, Carl and Sydney, to show how applying these real love principles really does transform things. Intimacy, communication, handling stress.
And it specifically links real love to better sex.
Yeah,
Saying it's more important than technique.
absolutely. It says the best foreplay is actually the daily loving acts, the emotional connection you build outside the bedroom. That's the foundation.
It also tackles infidelity pretty directly.
It does. Acknowledges the devastation, suggests it often stems from feeling unloved in the marriage, though that's never an excuse, and urges both partners to look at their own part in the dynamic. Blame and excuses are pointless afterwards.
And finally, divorce. Such a hard topic. What's the core advice?
Don't make that decision from a place of emptiness and fear. First, do the work. Learn to be truthful, find real love for yourself, then evaluate the marriage. Sometimes that process itself can save it.
And if your spouse wants divorce?
Listen, express your commitment if you feel it, but ultimately respect their choice. It also gives advice on co-parenting, focus on the kids, communicate respectfully, and the importance of forgiveness for everyone's healing, whether you stay together or not.
It sounds like the overall message is that building this kind of relationship, or even navigating its end healthily, takes real, ongoing effort.
Definitely. Persistence, time, it's not magic, but the book ends, hopefully, suggesting it's absolutely possible.
Okay, so if we were to boil it all down,
Yeah.
what are the absolute must-remember takeaways from this deep dive today?
Okay, key things. Unconditional love, real love, is the bedrock. Everything else rests on that. Blame, anger, manipulation, those getting and protecting behaviors, they come from a lack of that love and they damage things. Being truly honest about ourselves, flaws and all, is scary but essential for real connection.
Right,
Yeah.
vulnerability.
Yeah. And the hopeful part. It is possible to change these dynamics, to build more love, more understanding by focusing on giving and receiving that real love. It's not easy, but it's possible.
If there's one thing you'd want someone listening right now to really sit with and reflect on, what would it be?
I think it's the power of looking inward first. Our gut reaction when things go wrong in a relationship is usually to blame the other person. They did this, they didn't do that.
Yeah, it's almost automatic.
But this whole approach really pushes us to pause and look at our own stuff first. Our own fears, our own needs, our own history. How are we contributing to this dynamic?
Taking responsibility for our own emotional world.
Exactly. Instead of just focusing on fixing or changing our partner, that shift in focus feels, well, really powerful.
And for listeners who found this really resonated and want to go deeper, the book mentions Greg Bear has other resources too, right? More books, audio stuff.
Yeah, apparently he applies these real love concepts to other areas too, like parenting and dating, for those interested in exploring further.
Good to know.
And really, at the end of the day, the message feels quite empowering, doesn't it? It's not saying relationships are easy, but it is saying we have more agency than we think. Achieving real love and happiness isn't just luck. It takes understanding, it takes work, consistent effort. But the potential payoff for ourselves and our partners is huge, truly transformative, as the book shows. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
Step into your greatness, let it shine oh so bright. I am worthy VIP, gonna take you to new heights. Turn the volume up, let's ignite your soul's delight. Join the journey now, everything gonna be alright. Hey, hey, you know you're worthy all day. Stand tall, feel the love come your way. VIP every single day. Let's celebrate, it's your time to sway. Unlock your power, let your spirit take flight. I am worthy VIP, beaming light into the night. Feel the magic spark, it's a beautiful sight. Here to cheer you on, life shining a new light.